Welcome to the University of the Free State.
Wa amohelwa ho University of the Free State.
Welkom by die Universiteit van die Vrystaat.
Siyakwamukela eNyuvesi yase-Free State.
Situated in the heart of South Africa, my university is a creation of the past, the present, and the future. Across our 3 campuses, 7 faculties have been home to some of the most magnificent minds. Everything we do is rooted in our values of excellence, innovation and impact, accountability, care, social justice, and sustainability. We have been changing the world for more than a century. We continue to pave the way and inspire a fresh stream of knowledge and skill to follow in the footsteps of our scholars and alumni. We hunger for knowledge that will help us to be better and to do better. Our facilities encourage excellence, pulling us towards the light of new insight and ways of applying what we know. We lead by example, advocating sustainability in everything that we do. While we are making a current impact, we are also steering towards the future with the knowledge and skills we need to take the lead. The next years will be especially significant in our growth as our Vision 130 unfolds, which will peak in 2034 when the University of the Free State celebrates 130 years of existence. Vision 130 is our strategic intent to reposition the university for 2034. Join us on this journey. Together, we will go further.
profusely for starting this late. We did have a few technical challenges. Thank you all for coming. Like I said, please call your friends, call your colleagues. We are starting with the program. I am Desiree Matile. I will be the MC and facilitator for today's program. I guess in a UFS style, we are commemorating the beauty of access to higher education, the beauty that paved the way for all of you to be seated here today. We're not going to start off commemorating and crying. This is going to be a good and a fun event. The point of this event is that we learn how is it that we all got to be where we are today. So before we get there, please help me welcome one of our own greatest talents, Harmony Hives.
Some water. Started raining on the way to fetch some water. A woman had a baby on her back. Was struck by lightning on the way to fetch some water. Mama, way started raining on the way to fetch some water. A woman had a baby on her back. Was struck by lightning on the way to fetch some water. Mama, way started raining on the way to fetch some water. A woman had a baby on her back. Was struck by lightning on the way to fetch some water. Started raining on the way to fetch some water. A woman had a baby on her back. Was struck by
How is that? Did they fetch the water? Did they land? I'm not convinced. Did they land? I'm not convinced. Let's call them back to the stage. This time they must bring the water. Let's call them back. How many hives? With a big round of applause.
Sanibona. Ninja. Saxolisa ukuphinde sihambe siphinde sibuye yabo. Sicela ukunipha nje kokugcina. Then zobe seku right.
Right here with me is where you belong. Can I see? Can I feel? Ujabulisa inhliziyo yami, uthokozisa umphefumulo wami, uma nginawe konke kuphelele, you complete me. Ujabulisa inhliziyo yami, uthokozisa umphefumulo wami, uma nginawe konke kuphelele, you complete me. Oh, I adore the way you look at me. I adore the way you smile for me. Bantwana bakho, bantwana bakho. Tina singa bantwana
We can do better than that. How many hives, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for warming up the stage for us. Like I said, I'd like to reintroduce myself for our new or incoming guests. I am Desiree Motile. I will be running the show today. Like I said, so we are here about the aftermath of Fees Must Fall student movement. So I would also like to say thanks to the ED and his team. The significance of us having this dialogue in October, exactly 10 years after the first big national protest happened, all to open up the doors for all our students, all our young youth, to get all the tools they need to better their lives, to better their futures. So that happened. I remember when I was watching the news, there was one anchor who said, whoever thought we'll see Wit student throwing bricks? And it happened. But it happened with a cause, and it happened with a purpose. Of course, there were benefits. Of course, there were consequences. And with that's what we're here today. We will get our keynote address, who will explain to us, highlight us, inform us, and educate us. What happened after that? How are we still here after that? And what is our responsibility from here on going forward? So I will not introduce him, but please help me welcome our institutional SGO. Please help me welcome Mr. Polombalane to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Program Director, Executive Director of Student Affairs, Dr. Hlasho, Mr. Manchu, our Vice Principal Support Services, Director of Student Affairs, Mam Dotwana, Director of Housing and Residence Affairs, Mepulane, and all colleagues that are present here, the Head of Res Life, Mr. Mkize, the SRC President, Xaba Hlatsi, is also present here today. Mine is very short, but because of the person I'm going to introduce, it might end up being long. I've tried to cut the bio so that I save you some time. So where I get to tire, I will stop. Just be aware that we are also, I think it's important, we are also live on YouTube. But let me get to the point. I'm here to introduce our keynote speaker for the day, Dr. Gugulethu Xaba. He's a seasoned higher education leader and a respected national voice in student affairs and leadership development. With over 20 years of experience in the post-schooling sector, most of which has been dedicated to empowering student leadership, he currently serves as the Director of Student Governance and Leadership at Tshwane University of Technology, where he oversees governance structures across 6 campuses and an outdoor leadership center. Dr. Xaba holds a doctorate in organizational leadership, a master's in entrepreneurship, and advanced qualifications in executive development, cooperative governance, and Christian leadership. He's a former president of the National Association of Student Development Practitioners, a founding member of the South African Federation of Student Affairs and Services, and a contributor to national student leadership initiatives led by the Department of Higher Education and Training. Maybe let's clap for now so that you give me a break. Thank you. In addition to his leadership roles, Dr. Xaba is a published researcher, having co-authored papers such as Open Code, Experiences of Student Affairs Professionals in Facilitating Co-Curricular Leadership Development Programs in South African Universities, Close Code, and this was published in 2021. And open quote, business owners' perspectives in pursuance of their business, what matters most. This was published in 2014. He has also contributed to peer-reviewed conferences such as the 9th Entrepreneurship Conference in Kampala, in Uganda. Beyond academia, Dr. Xaba serves as a chairperson of the Dr. George Mukari Academic Hospital Board and as a member of the Gauteng Gambling Board. Previously, he served as deputy chairperson of council at both Ekuhuleni East TVET College and Vuselela TVET College. He is also the founder and pastor of the Lighthouse Community Center in Selkot, where he champions youth empowerment, men's active involvement in community transformation. Dr. Xaba brings a unique blend of scholarship, governance, and grassroots activism, challenging individuals and institutions to lead with purpose and make a meaningful impact where it matters the most. I will stop there for now, and let's give a huge round of applause for Dr. Xaba. Dr. Xaba.
Good. Sanmunani. Dumelang. Absheni. Yenda. You know, the Venda language is so difficult for some of us who are Zulu, in such a way that at least we have been helped by Henda. So when you say Henda, we've said it all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for allowing me an opportunity to address you this almost evening. Let me thank Dr. Hlasho. I bought you books to congratulate you for your doctorate. They are in my bag in the car. I'll give them to you. Yeah, just remind me not to go back to Pretoria with those books, Doc. I had to pick a few ones. One of the books that I've chosen, it's The Art of War. So I had to give you The Art of War because student affairs, sometimes we must manage wars. So, I also greet my colleagues who are having different titles and names, and I also greet the president of the SRC, who is the first amongst the equals, who are student leaders in this campus, and all the students at Sandre, Sanbonani Futhi. It's a beautiful day today to talk about the aftermath of Fees Must Fall on student movement in higher education. I saw that the aims are to determine how Fees Must Fall has transformed activism in higher education institution since 2015. Also, we want to assess the effectiveness of this role in establishing a coherent student activism legacy within higher education. At least one of the things I can say is that as I'm standing here, at least I've participated in a few revolutions as a student and as a worker myself. Fees Must Fall was a watershed moment in South Africa between 2015 and 2017. It was more than a campaign for free education, eradication. It also became a national awakening around access, equity, and transformation in universities. You know, before Fees Must Fall, there were some executives in the university who did not know that there was a department called Student Affairs. And then when there was Fees Must Fall, they asked, by the way, who's supposed to deal with these young people? They said there's a department called Student Affairs. It helped to elevate the importance of our work, to bring stability, understand the voices of students, and to decipher the real issues. Because one of the things as a good student affairs professional that you will learn is the ability to decipher the real issues. Because we have realized, the student affairs practitioners, that not everything written in a memorandum is the real issue. Sometimes there's a bishop somewhere in some corner with another issue which has not been written on paper. So our job, therefore, is to understand the ground, understand the students as they are before they communicate their issues formally. So we've tried in 2015 to 2017 to make management understand the different issues that the students were raising That's why then we were able to bring back stability in the university. But Fees Must Fall was not the first movement that we experienced in higher education. Those of you who have been scholars, they would know that there was an era of anti-apartheid resistance between 1940 and 1980. Okay, maybe the first big movement of young people happened in the 76, where the youth in education, as much as they were mostly in high school, 1976, that's why we know names like Tsietsi Mashinini and many other young people who raised a flag. But after 1976, they were fighting against Afrikaans being made a compulsory language in high schools, in all places of education. I know those of you who studied law way back, your uncles, your fathers, your grandparents, they used to study even law in Afrikaans, science in Afrikaans, maths in Afrikaans. That's why then 1976 became the first watershed in South Africa under apartheid, where students rose against the system and pushed back. That's why we know now that every year, June 16, it's a holiday. It's because of those young people in 1976. But there was another group in 1986. The struggle was simple. There was a mantra which was used in 1976. It was a mantra which was used by committees of parents, teachers, and students. They used to use a mantra that says, people's education for people's power. Can you say these words with me? People's education for people's power. Come on, somebody, say people's education for people's power. That was the 86 struggle, which was led by young people together with their parents and the revolutionary type of teachers. Because there were teachers who were sellouts and teachers who were revolutionary. So those who chose to be in the right side of the struggle, they participated in that 1986. Some of the demands, when you look, and one of the guys, one of the Sisulu brothers was part of the leaders of the People's Education for People's Power movement in the 86. That was my first opportunity to participate in that struggle. Because 1976, I was too young. I just watched and I did not understand. I thought there was a bribe, but there was a lot of fire. There were sirens. I thought there was a party. But 1986, at least I was a student in high school. For the first time, I was led by those who were older than us to that struggle of people's education for people's power. And some of the things which were fought for were textbooks. There were no textbooks in black high schools before 1986. But the struggle which was led through the teachers, parents, and students, it led to having free textbooks being brought to our high schools. And the next watershed moment happened in the 90s. It was 1996. I remember I was doing my second round of higher education because the first round I was expelled. In 1993, I was expelled when I was doing my third year. 1994, I went back to school. 1996, there was a movement. It was called Operation Access, which was led by Jacob Mamabulo in our country, who's currently the MEC in Gauteng for transport and something else. So he was the leader of one of the student movements in our country, and then he led a campaign which was called Operation Access. The essence of Operation Access was to demand that universities that were called white universities should take black students by force and enroll them. I remember I was at Technical Witwatersrand at that particular time. Technical Witwatersrand in 1996 had only 20% black students. And then we participated in that struggle of making sure that give access to our people. And universities, this campus was still University of Qwaqwa, which was connected to Teflop University at that particular time. But Bloemfontein was one of the universities where this struggle for access was meted by young people in our country. And then that moment moved on. And then there was also a fight for Goombas in the 90s. We wanted to have fun because we just received our freedom. And then the university were very strict. They did not allow a party. And then there were struggles to say that we want Igumba. That's why songs like Oscar Waruna, Wari Sebele started in those particular years during the times of Gumba. So we had to fight for Gumba. I remember in 1993, which was a precursor of that struggle of 1996, we were fighting to have single rooms There were no single rooms in the universities. We were all sharing. Actually, we were living in 4 rooms. And then we had to fight for single rooms. So the struggles of the students have been emerging. And then I remember we were fighting for TEFSA. Before NEFSAS became NSFAS, it used to be called TEFSA. And some of us used to go to school through TEFSA, and we paid it back, by the way. We paid back, and then it was converted into NSFAS after the 1996 struggle. Then there was a lull in higher education, especially because social media was not a big thing in the 90s. But 2015, because of social media, the fees must fall happened. It started, and people must also understand that campuses like Kwakwa campus of University of Free State has been having fees must fall for many years without it being called fees must fall. Campuses like Soshanguve campus of TUT, Garankuwa campus of TUT, University of Limpopo, Limpopo, University of KwaZulu-Natal, DUT, they've been having fees must fall for many times, but it never gained traction that it gained in 2015 because there was no social media as a platform. But in 2015, when there was fees must fall, the young people stood up in our country and they started making many demands. They were demanding that there must be a change. Like for instance, there was a demand for political economy to say that we do not afford. And you must also understand that in 1986, when there was People's Education for People's Power, I remember one day, we used to pay 20 rand school fees in our high school. There was a time where there was a queue where we were collecting our school fees back, but we did not tell the parents that we got the 20 bucks. And that was the first time we were fighting, and the slogan was Asina Mali. So the fees must fall movement, it was a synchrony of all the struggles of young people from the 40s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And then because of social media, it went out with a bam. Another thing that made fees must fall to be a struggle that was given attention, especially by media in South Africa, is because for the first time in life, it touched the untouchable universities. It touched UCT, it touched Wits, it touched Rhodes, it touched Stellenbosch, it touched Pretoria University. You must also understand that your university, before fees must fall, did not have English as a medium of communication. It's fees must fall that brought English in University of Free State as the main language of communication. Universities like University of Pretoria, they only changed after fees must fall, the language policy, to allow English to be the central language. You used to attend a class and they will speak in Afrikaans and you will have a translator for yourself who wanted to understand in English at University of Free State, at University of Pretoria. So fees must fall was the one that pushed this whole thing, because even white students, they said, even I want to learn in Africa in English. I don't want to learn in Afrikaans because I'm preparing to go and study overseas. For the first time, the leaders of university, we thought these ones, they were comfortable with this language. Yet, even themselves, they wanted to learn in English. Because English has become a very powerful thing all over the world. Even when you go to Italy, you will see young people in Italy, they want to learn English because it's a language of work all over the world. So, there were many demands. The first demand was no fee increases. Young people said, we don't want any fee increases in the universities. Number 2, there was a demand for free education for the missing middle. Because the children of the middle class, they felt like, we too, we're paying for everything. The middle class is paying for, does not have an RTP house, does not have NSFAS. And then they said, no, we are demanding for our parents so that the missing middle can also be given something. There was also a demand that the GDP contribution towards education, the demand was 2%. And at the current stage, it was 0.68%. The amount of GDP, amount of the budget equal to the GDP was only 0.68%, which was spent on education. There was a demand. If you can check now, it has moved to about 3%. The demand was that let it move to at least 2%. But I can tell you we need more. At least 10% of the GDP must fund education in our country. Another demand was addressing the application and registration fees. That's why most universities have scrapped application fees. You know, it is very sad, this issue of application fees. You know, this university, what's the student population at University of Free State in total? It's around 44,000. Do you know that the number of applicants every year is more than 200,000 in this university? More than 200,000 people want to enter. But they usually have spaces, about 6,000, 7,000 spaces. But all universities, like my university at Swan University of Technology, we have more than 400,000 applicants per annum. But we can only accommodate 14,000 first-year students. Multiply that 400,000 by 200 rands or 250 of application fees and see how much the university just makes for people who are trying to say, can you consider me? So the students, during the fees must fall, they fought against those things. That's why universities in KwaZulu-Natal, all of them, they scrapped the majority of the application fees. And many other universities in our country. That's the victory that young people did win. There was an issue of benefiting the missing middle that I've touched as well, and many other issues. But the bigger issue was decolonization of education in higher education. I don't think we've achieved that so far. I think that struggle is still long. We are far away from achieving it because it starts with curriculating. There are many fundamental things that have to be changed for the decolonization to happen, meaning that, number one, the first thing that we must have decolonized academics. Because an academic that has been colonized cannot decolonize a system because he himself is also chained by the same colonization aspect. So we need you as a generation to decolonize yourself so that then you can decolonize education. Because it's a thoughtfulness issue. It's a thinking issue, it's a framework issue, it's a paradigm shift issue to decolonize. But also, there's too many of us who just love the Western things, the Northern things. As a result, we have to decolonize the mind, because until we decolonize the minds of our people, we are not going to be able to decolonize the books. Again, there's too many of us who are not writing anything. Let me just give you an example from the Statistics South Africa. Let me just ask you a question. How many black people in South Africa do you think are having degrees? What's the percentage of the population of blacks who are having a degree? Let me just throw a figure there. What's your figure? 60. What's your figure? I want you to go to the Statistics South Africa. It will tell you that only 6% of black South Africans in South Africa have a degree. 6%. What does that tell you? It tells you that it's going to be difficult to decolonize education as long as black people are not able to deal with complex issues like writing textbooks. Because Angisho, you can only decolonize what you have written yourself. If most black people write nothing, it means that we will always read books within the context of those who have written those books. That's why they say we will always tell the story of the hunter because the lion cannot speak. The unfortunate part is that most Africans cannot speak, cannot write. In 1994, the level of literacy in South Africa was far above 70%, meaning that only less than 30% of blacks could read at least a newspaper or a Bible. Most of them listen to other people to lithini namhlanje verse. So, as long as we're having, why do people need degrees? They need degrees so that they can understand complex matters. Because education helps you to deal with complexity. If majority of black people cannot deal with complexity because they don't have degrees, woe unto us. It means we're still going to be fooled by lootists, politicians who are looting our country. We're still going to be fooled by pastors in church who don't know what they are talking about. We're still going to be fooled by other people who are making us to eat grass. Because we don't understand complexity. We cannot deal with complexities. So fees must fall. The key demand that has not yet been met on fees must fall. It's this issue of decolonizing. But for you to be able to fruitfully and effectively decolonize, you must get yourself to a level where you are an expert in your field. Then you can write your own story and be able to tell your own story. Let me give you another example that I've seen why our children from the rural areas used to fail mathematics problems. There was a question which we used to answer when I was doing matric. It says, calculate the distance from your home to the boom gate at a mall and to the shop and going back home. I'm just paraphrasing that question. But if a child has never been through a mall, has never been through a place where there are traffic lights, it's telling you that the writer of this question is writing for his own audience. That's why those he is writing for will always have an advantage. So for you to decolonize, you must write things in a way that your own community can be able to understand and be successful in it. Unfortunately, we are far away from decolonizing. Well, there are many gains in this fees must fall. Policy gains, there was a lot of policy shifts in universities. There were outsourcing, like gains. For instance, security guards were outsourced in the past, but most of them have been insourced. Cleaners were outsourced, most of them have been insourced. And, because I was leading a union during that time of fees must fall, I sometimes meet these workers who used to work for some organization. Now they work for the university. When they see me, they say, Gugu, ki rekile koloi, I bought a car. Ki re how mami? A ke re no se ke berekela TUT. Ki kgola fita ma teacher. So that's what the struggle for insourcing has done. It has changed the lives of many people, and it's you, young people, who led that struggle. There was also changes in some curriculum. Like I was talking to you about the language policy of your own university has changed because of fees must fall. The language policy of many, many, many other universities changed because of fees must fall. There was emergence of new activists and intellectuals influencing policy, civil society, media, etc., etc. However, there were a lot of challenges that came because of fees must fall. Fragmentation of movements post-2017. During fees must fall, we did not know who was a leader of these students. They were so united. But after fees must fall, the colors, red, white, blue, black, came back. That's why now we see the heavy competition between political groups. Society is fragmented again. So the unity of fees must fall, the students and the young people did not manage to keep it. They lost it. Number two, there was a decline in mass mobilization power compared to peak years. You can see, it's like there's a lull. Because each time students achieve their demands, the big demands in higher education are gone. As a result, there's no need for activism. But re lwanela eng? Re thola di 1,500 a month, re jaha monate, we are washing with hot water. Why should we go to a struggle? Unfortunately, we are realizing that people have now forgotten that there's still many more things to achieve. But the biggest problem was the co-option of some leaders into the mainstream politics of the country, thus diluting the activist energy. The former chairperson of the Portfolio Committee in Higher Education was a former activist of fees must fall. But I can tell you, the chair before her and the chair currently, I think I remember what is it that they are pushing more than, we expected that activists to push bigger things compared to these others who were not part of the struggle. But most of these activists of fees must fall, they joined organizations, they were deployed in parliament, some of them disappeared. It's only recently that you're beginning to see them again. Maybe it takes 5 years to understand, or 10 years to understand parliament before you can be able to really fight for the right issues. That's why you can hear Abo Sihle making noise, proper noises. Because this reversal that has happened of the new policy that the minister, Paxter, was trying to introduce has been reversed because of those fees must fall activists in parliament. All of them from all the colors agreeing to say we're pushing back against this thing. Government took a decision. But another problem was the persistent structural inequalities that keep on happening in higher education. Student debt has not been scrapped. Student debt is still up there. As a result, most of the poor graduates, they must start by paying off their debt first before they can even buy their own car, before they can even have a house. Because if you buy your son or a daughter a house, a car, you are saving them 5 years of work. Because it takes 5 years normally to finish the installment of a car. If you buy your daughter or a son a house, you save them 20 years of paying the installments. So, unfortunately, the poor students, the poor graduates still have to deal with this debt. Some of them don't even get their certificates. It's only now where there's been a push, give them certificates and the likes. But this debt remains a problem. Again, the issue of success in student accommodation, where we are having private student accommodation amass, has led to a lot of corruption of some of these comrades who participated in the fees must fall struggle. So we can see that there is this correlation and partnership between activists and some business people. So some of these activists have forgotten their work. Now they become some pseudo-entrepreneurs who are actually chowing students' money. That's why the current chairperson of the Portfolio Committee of Parliament asked a question the other day. He said, why is it that a private student accommodation room where students live, when you look at the square meters and you compare it with another place where no students are living, the price here is triple compared to the same size of a room where a normal worker lives. Clearly, there is some correlation. The goodness that we have fought for has brought some new emerging problems that we need to fight. As I close, another thing which was a problem during fees must fall was violent and destruction of property. I'm sure you have seen. I was just discussing with my colleagues how we saw, like for instance at CPUT and at another university, where workers were inside a place, and it was UKZN, and the students petrol bombed that place without caring that those people who were inside that room were also parents of probably same students in the same university. I remember 3 security guards at Cape Peninsula University were also petrol bombed. And many other students were also petrol bombed in the name of being sellouts. So there were some wrong things, and you must accept that some wrong things have happened. That's why sometimes some of the comrades are still in prison today, not because of activism, but because of anarchy. Because some of our comrades are there because of anarchy. I know one lady at Durban University of Technology who was driving off campus, and one activist hit her with a rock on her head. Even today, it's been 10 years, she's still like nursing that wound because it disintegrated her head. She had to have a reconstruction operation. Then you ask yourself, what did this worker do to deserve that? And that student was saying, no, Realwana, Kimzawala, that's being revolutionary. That's not revolution, that's anarchy. That's why in student affairs we believe in a principle which is called like decency, civility. We say we must contradict, yes, but we must contradict with what? With civility. Unfortunately, during fees must fall, just like every good thing. I remember in the township where we used to punish some people. Sometimes you'll be punishing with this person, Yemvubu, or a whip. And one time some evil comrade will come with a big brick and will come to this person and aim for the head. Then we knew, some of us are crazy. So even in fees must fall, there were some comrades which were opportunists. All they wanted to do was to loot. All they wanted to do was to destroy property as if we had more money to rebuild those properties. There was also inconsistent gains. Some successes, such as waiving application fees, have since been rolled back. I'm sure you have seen some of these things which you won are beginning to come back because of recalculations and recontextualizations or whatever English language is used to throw these things back so that they can reclaim them back. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? I've raised this issue of decolonization. NSFAS challenges, mismanagement. You know there's a lot of money in NSFAS, but it's being mismanaged. And then some of it is being mismanaged by people who were participating in fees must fall, now who work for NSFAS. That's why then we are saying, young people, it's important as we reflect to also look at this. What remains strong is a collective memory of student power. At least you have a story to tell as that generation that we saw fees must fall. Just like we saw 1986 and we saw 1996, we participated in that struggle. At least future is not going to judge us harshly. When our children ask us, what did you do, mama, at university? You're going to say, I was part of fees must fall, baby. I did it. I was hip and happening. So at least we do have a story to tell. Another thing is that there is vocabulary of decolonization. People who were introduced to new concepts. Black consciousness came back through fees must fall. People started to say, Utenu Biko. I want to be another Biko. And I remember Biko was in his 20s when he wrote that book, I Write What I Like. So you are that generation that became Bikos of our time in 2016. What remains weak is lack of sustained national coordination across SRCs and student bodies. Because you remember, during fees must fall, people did not want SRCs to represent them. Like we had to talk to people we did not know as student affairs. But unfortunately, we are back there. The SRC are back, but the question is, are we using the tool of the SRC effectively to address the students' concerns and interests? Or is just competition between those who are corrupt, fighting for their, it's our chance to eat. What remains weak? What remains weak is that the struggle of high costs of education remains. The struggle of university students not having their degrees remains. Student debt remains. So in the future, we need to be able to champion and challenge these things. As I thank you. Oh, let me sit there. Oh.
Please join me here on stage.
Well, at my age, I may be looking young, but hey, I'm in the 5th floor now.
Oh, homonat. Post-colonialism and stuff. Okay, thank you so much, Doc. So now we're starting with the engagement phase. Would like to dissect more on what Dr. Xaba has educated us on, but I would like all of us to discuss it. So, Dr. Xaba, if you'll allow me, in as much as we all know and we would like for English to be the mainly or the primary language that we use, may I please allow our audience members, because I feel this is a very deep and a heated issue. Say it however you wish, but for interest of our interpreters and those online, we will interpret what you have said, okay? And then, obviously, Dr. Xaba and I will stick to English. So, you said so much. You said so much, and towards the end, you reminded me of a quote I saw recently. It says, "It is corruption when you don't earn anything from it, but it's a connection when you start eating on the same table." It is corruption when you don't earn anything from it, but it is a connection when you start eating from the same table. Very much from what you said, we all remember, or some of us who were very attentive and paying attention. There was this protest. So many buildings went up in flames around the whole country. It was just a mess. To some of us, it looked like a mess, especially if you were a staff member at the time. For students, I'm sure they just saw rainbow was in the horizon. But then after that, you started seeing people are getting arrested, students are arrested, what is happening? And then those same students afterwards, you're thinking, oh my gosh, we have to fight for our brothers and sisters. And the brothers and sisters don't come back to education anymore. Coming back to what you just said, that now people start learning the art of politics. They don't come back. They feel they've done their part for student activism. Now, what happened? How do we combat that from happening? How do we groom our students, and especially those ones who really want to speak and fight and be the voice for the voiceless, to never lose that passion, to never deter just because you saw Mandela's in front of you?
Yeah, I think it's important that, number one, at least we must accept that there must always be ethics in however you lead. You must put parameters for yourself. If you have to be a successful leader, you must have things that you say, I don't do them. Because of my family, I don't do these things. Because of my religion, I don't do these things. Because of my politics, my philosophy, my ideals, the ideal me does not do these things. It's just like things like GPV. Angimshaya ucheri, noma anginyanyisa kanjani. Nama out angisawa shy. So you must have that line as a person, because what is it that makes us human beings? It's because, unlike animals, we do have a line that we don't cross. Those are our values, Those are the systems of our own forefathers. This is what we call Ubuntu Bethu. It's because we have a line, we respect. That's why I'm talking about this concept of civility. To say that, yes, we do fight, but we are civil. You must not come out of who you are, no matter how big a challenge ahead of you or in front of you is. You must always know that, okay, I've got limitations. Number two, I think we must also educate ourselves, which is something that I don't think a lot of student leaders have educated themselves, that there are laws in this country that you can use to force the system to respond to what you want. I'll give you an example of what I've done when I was a unionist. There was one building where there were fumes in that building, and the workers were always getting sick. I knew that management, after writing many memos, they were not listening to me as a unionist. What I did was to write to the Department of Labor and ask that there must be an inspection in that department. The Department of Labor came with the inspectors, they tested the fumes, and they gave the university a timeline to say that before the end of these days, these workers must have been relocated because where they are working, there are fumes. Management did not do it. The following time, when they came back with the police. They wanted to arrest the vice-chancellor of the university. I'm telling you, within a week, there was a new building where these workers were relocated. I've not seen students pushing back, utilizing what the legal framework usually allows them to do. We've seen organizations like Freedom Front Plus, how they push back sometimes, utilizing the laws. The SRC, we hardly hear that the SRC has looked for an interdict. Actually, they usually go to court to defend an interdict against them being stopped from doing anarchy. So it's important to learn that the legal frameworks allow us to be able to push back. Sometimes you can bring the Human Rights Commission to campus to be able to look at the conditions in the rest and deal with those particular things. It does not mean all the time must close the gates, shut down. Well, shutting down probably once in a while, but not all the time. There is laws in this country, there are rules in this country that are at the side of the people, but the people hardly explore the usability of all these laws. We must be able to look at that. So it's important that as and when we enter into new struggles, I was looking at Greenpeace. Those of you who watch the news, Greenpeace is in Cape Town because there is something of G20 happening there, and Greenpeace, they do these legal protests. They came with something that looked like a phone to raise a message of saying the phone companies are polluting the world, and they chained themselves in these things. The police did not shoot them. They did not break anything, but that thing had impact. We've seen what UCT students did when they brought a check on campus during Fees Must Fall. They brought a check to show management that the conditions where we're staying are bad. And that message was more powerful than closing a gate, breaking the showers, and doing other things which are wrong. So at least we must learn that the new environment, this is how Gwede Mantashe used to put it. He used to say, when the doors are locked, yes, kick them. But when they are opened, please open and come in, sit down, let's talk about it. I think the time has changed. It requires that we must then teach new ways of activism. But we need activists through and through. We must not be like countries like Zimbabwe, where people just run away when there's problems. South Africans must learn to push back, but push back within the framework and the limits of the law.
Thank you so much. And it is so true, Dr. Xaba. Very true that it even reminds me, especially when you touched on decolonization and various parts of it, facets of it, what we succeeded and what we did not get right as yet. I think also, and audience, please do help me on this one. There is a sense of fear, a greater fear looming in the country. There is that uhuru that we see. There is that place of milk and honey that we want to get to. But it is that period of transformation that we fear so much. We can even look back at after Zambia won their apartheid war with the British, and then when they wanted their economic power to themselves, they cut themselves completely from the macroeconomics, and they wanted to start their economics from scratch that it benefits the people of the country. But they suffered for years before they got it right. So I think also, how could we do it in a space or a way, especially when it comes to decolonizing the education? How would you think or dream? It could be that we get it right, but we don't get it right, that we suffer. Maybe we will suffer. Maybe that is the fruit to bear. Maybe we have to, start the pineapple from the outside before we get inside. How do we, or how would you say that we can get there? And obviously, at some point, maybe some of us, we will enjoy those fruits. Maybe only our kids and grandkids will get to enjoy the fruits. But however, this is not just a burning issue, but it is a dream that needs to be realized.
Yeah, I think it's exposure, man. There's an important aspect that young people must expose themselves to the right knowledge. We've got access to social media these days. We see what's happening in the world. But the unfortunate part is that we are influenced by slay queens, and there's many things we can see on social media that are not slaying. we must start, once, those of you who have bought cars before, once you say, I want this car, you start to see it everywhere. So knowledge of good things is like that. If you inform yourself and appetize yourself with the right knowledge, the right ambitions, you're going to begin to see it everywhere. The unfortunate part is that we spend too much time on Temu, we still spend too much time on wrong platforms. We don't read about how did other countries get themselves to where they are. Like countries which are smaller than ours, like Singapore. How did such a country get themselves where they are? But also, the biggest problem of us as a people is that most of us, we only learn and read for ourselves. We don't read for the future generations to say, I want to liberate the entire generation in my family. Let me give you an example around this issue of xenophobia. I know sometimes when you listen to South Africa, they will say, no, there's just too many foreigners in our country. Abahambe. But what they don't understand is because they've not traveled. You know, when you go to countries like Qatar, United Arab Emirates, in Qatar, the citizens of that country are only 2 million in number. But in Qatar, there's 6 million people. What does that tell us? It tells us that in Qatar, there's more than 4 million foreigners, and all of them have jobs in that country. So even in South Africa, what South Africa needs is success. It's not to get rid of others. We need to be success in such a way that our country, even if there's more people who are coming to help us in this economy, we feel comfortable with it. Unfortunately, because of lack of exposure, the same thing when you go to Dubai, that UAE part of area, even in Dubai, there are only 2 million those citizens. You can go and Google it. And the foreigners are more than 4 million in Dubai, including Vusi Tembegwa. He now stays there in Dubai. He now lives in Dubai. I was talking to him the other day. He says, no, man, I'm in Dubai. So he lives there. So there's many foreigners in certain countries than citizens. But the difference is that in our country, we are not focused at let's make our economy work for us and also be able to accommodate those who are coming. That's why we're fighting for smaller things. We need to then expose ourselves. Exposure becomes that important thing. As a young person, one of the things that you must take advantage of is to travel. Because if you travel, you don't only read one page. If you have not traveled, your life has only been exposed to only one page. But if you have been to many other places, then you begin to have a perspective. So then you know other things that can help you. Then that will help to shape your ideas, your thinking, your ambitions, your drive. So that, because you must have things that are driving you. But you can't be driven by what you have not seen. You must see it. You must hear it. You must read it. So the culture of reading must come back. The culture of exposing yourself to the right appetites is key. Then clothes, come on, man. We must no longer expose ourselves to new alcohol, new clothes. We must expose ourselves to good things. What is it that makes other countries great? Let's read about the story of Singapore so that we can take those ideas and implement them in our country.
Do we have any comments, questions from the floor? Thank you so much. Could we please we have 3 hands. There's a hand there at the back. Please also stand before you speak, and then we'll come here to Penwell and then here in front.
All right, thank you very much for the platform, and yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Xaba, for that. You said a mouthful, and yeah. Oh, by the way, my name is Bonginkosi Ngongwan. Yes, sir. I would firstly like to start by commending you, Doctor, for being honest in terms of the nature of decolonization, the status of where we stand currently. Because I found that most scholars of decolonization, they tend to be dishonest in terms of where we are. They want to paint out the picture that we are there, we are getting there just because there's been a few PhDs and whatnot that are submitted in, written in vernacular language. That is progress, yes, we acknowledge it. But there's more to decolonization than that. So thank you for that honesty. And then, in terms of the aftermath itself of the fees must fall and the effect that it has had on activism, it is true, Doctor, that we do not want to promote anarchy and all of that. But I think also, in looking at that, we should not then also ignore how students themselves, when we protest, we are quickly militarized. Like in this very campus, for instance, you can hear a struggle song now. The very next morning, you will see those people, those black goons and securities here, ready to violate us. So, yes, we should say to students, let us go more for a struggle of the mind and the legal frameworks and whatnot. But also, the normalization of the militarization of campuses, it should not threaten the right that is given in Section 17, that the right to protest and to demonstrate and to hand out petitions. So we should also look at that. And also, yeah, you did mention the fact that, you know, the one thing that I acknowledge or sort of see as one of the biggest gains of Fees Must Fall is the reconscientization of the black mind, the coming back of the discourse of Biko and others into the fore. But then also there is a danger in that I see. I'm not sure if it is my own observation, and it speaks to the idea of segregation and decolonization as well. Because as much as this discourse has come back now, we speak of Bigo, but then that sort of segregates us, and it separates us from our brothers that we left back in the township, because then I'm just saying now to us here to say that let us not allow those discourses to sort of separate us from our people. Let us go back and then be able to teach them so that our education benefits our community. Because Biko himself says that, you know, it would be, it is dangerous for the black intelligentsia to separate itself from the rest of society. So yeah, those are the points that I would like to submit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Program Director. So I will just speak from an experience. I will not dwell much as that young gentleman has did. So my overview based on decolonization of in higher education, I think it's party politics. So party politics, they are not serving us in higher education. For example, the previous leadership of Bloemfontein, the SRC, there was a collision there. There was SASCO, there was EFF, there was another parties which I don't know. I think we have a problem as the young generation to say we support the principles or policies of a party rather than being flexible to support ideologies and principles from the individual. Because I don't want to lie, the politics, they really make sense when it comes to the economic growth of the country. But when it comes to higher education, some of the things, they don't make sense. So if we are part of that politics, such as EFF or MK or what, unfortunately, we have to support those principles which they don't make sense to us. Another example, and I've made that observation, you can ask one of the leadership, the previous leadership of SRC from Bloemfontein, to tell you what have they done for their student at Bloemfontein. Nothing. Because they spend the whole year trying to discredit one another. Because obviously, if I'm an EFF, I can't support an idea from a SASCO. You know, so they are spending the whole year trying to sabotage one another. So I think the party politics, they do not work for us in higher education, and we are still far away from decolonizing education in higher education. My question is, Dr. Xaba, so how can university and the government sustain free education financially? For example, for your understanding, such as a family will budget to cover expenses. So how can the university and the government sustain free education in our country? Thank you so much.
Greetings to our guest speaker, Doctor. Greetings to the ED. Greetings to the director, to the HOD, and every other stakeholders, the principal, vice principal. So my part is simple. Firstly, I would like to appreciate such I wouldn't call it a lecture, rather the conversation, because we're conveying with each other. So firstly, I would point out, I would like to speak on the last part that you talked about. I think it's very interesting, and then I'll come up with a question which I think I would answer some part, and then I would like to hear your opinion on it, or rather your take. So firstly, the part of being revolutionary and anarchy, I think it's a very important pointer, and it also comes back to what previous speaker said as to what one believes, which also leads back to, if you are politically affiliated, it also leads back to that. For example, myself, I've always believed that as leadership, or being part of SRC, being part of RCs and whatnot, whichever substructure that one may currently be subscribing to, our first point of departure should be to serve the student wholeheartedly, and never for a moment divorce ourselves from the masses. So whichever, in whatever case, from the interest of the students, we should always be for the interest of the students, whichever group, be it small or large, and to identify our responsibilities to the people and for the students. So with that being said, it comes back to saying sometimes we don't, or rather leaders don't practice anarchy because they want to, but the situation calls for it. I'll go back to the example of closing gates that you made, that it's not always a requirement, or rather it should not always be an answer, which I agree. But when the university has proven that oftentimes than not, when you close the gate, they give you what you want, then nature would dictate that that is the course, or rather the route that you would have to take from time to time. And then with that being said, I will go to my question which I had in regards to this conversation, the aftermath of, so my question is, was free education introduced too early, or was it introduced too late? So I'm asking this in regards to, in the higher education, of course, the introduction of free education in the higher education. So in South Africa. So my argument is to ask, as in terms of sustainability also. I think my brother also spoke about sustainability. So it can be argued to have been too early, which is my point. Primarily because the state at the time had not yet developed the financial, administrative, and institutional structures as in which are required to sustain such a policy. So while the demand for the accessible education was urgent, the government implemented the policy in response to the social pressure without firstly ensuring long-term investment or mechanism, of which the social pressure may also include the fees must fall. So this prematurely implementation created a lot of challenges, which you also touched on some of them. Universities were not given adequate time to implement adequate resources, to accommodate the surge of enrollment. We have seen a number of large enrollment in the university, which goes also to university NSFAS applications. When I go back to check, maybe I think around 2018, we usually had statistics of around about 600 students applying for NSFAS applications. Right now we have about, it's almost to 1 million at times. So that tells us the surge, or rather the increment in those applications, which also is a result of the fees must fall protest. So in this, I'm simply saying, so it led to an overcrowding, which then leading to an overcrowding strain on infrastructure. Additionally, the national budget was not sufficient at the time, that's what I want to believe, to adjust to absorb the cost, forcing to cut in other critical areas of service delivery. So, therefore, although the vision of free education is progressive, necessary for addressing Africa came, in South Africa, it came too early. So that's my belief in terms of its sustainability. So do you think it came too early or was it too late? Like I would speak, for example, because universities are in a way service providers. So unless they generate certain income, they will not be sustained. They may have to file up for bankruptcy. They may have to, they will not be sustained basically. For example, I'll make an example. Currently the University of the Free State student debt goes around, it's 288 to 300 million students which are owing the university. Some of course fall under NSFAS recipients, some are self-paying. So in a sense, that then seeks to say, as much as they are providing service and they are being owed, what then comes from there? For example, if we are to say free education entirely, we force this notion, should it be the government that is paying for these students, and should it be paying to the university, or the university will get their payments from the government in sense of lecturers are being paid, resources are being provided. So with that, I'm simply asking, was free education, did it come too early or was it too late? And I would like you to answer that basing also on the narration that fees must fall did not start in 2015, but it started earlier than that, in the 1940s, in the 1950s, in the 1970s, just that it didn't have that name. And maybe it was also not publicized as it was in 2015 because of social media. Thank you so much.
Are we taking more? How many did you note? Oh, this is the last one. It's fine.
Good evening, everybody. My name is, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Xaba. My name is Gugulethu, and I am a former RC. So the question that I want to ask is specifically to you, Dr. Xaba, as someone who has experience in student affairs. So the question from me mainly is centered around the incentivizing of student leaders within higher education, particularly, because you spoke of being an anti-anarchist, if I remember correctly. But Frans Fanon theorizes that the process of decolonization is a violent one. And I'm not advocating for anarchy in a sense, but wouldn't you say that the institutions incentivizing the student leaders is a form of them capitalizing on the stomach politics that exist among student leaders? Because in a sense, it is very impossible for us to bite the hand that feeds us. Hence why we haven't had many radicalized student leaders in recent times. But of course, you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you.
Fine. Was that the last one? Oh, thank you very much. I feel like I'm in a university. It's good to be here. That's why I've been working for a university for 25 years. So it's nice to see that even the young ones are thinkers. You've asked interesting questions. Some of them, I'm sure you have the answers for them. I will not be able to have all the answers for all the questions. Thank you, Wonkosi, for your remarks that you have made. And all of you, there is a theme that is common, which has been closed by the last speaker, of thinking because violence works, we will use it again. Perhaps management and students must have a conversation about that, because it's true. Once students see that this is working, they will do it again. It's just like a boyfriend who beats a girl and she complies. He will do it again, right? But does it mean that beating of that girl is right? No, it's not. So even anarchy and using violence to demand, that's why, I have, my son is 5 years old. There are times where I can see that if I'm going to keep on giving this young man the ice cream, even when it makes him sick, we are going to have a problem in the house. I might be creating a monster for the future. That's why then there must be that conversation between managers to say, why do you keep on fighting? Is it because we don't listen to you? Is it because we don't give you spaces to speak? If that's the issue, then I'm sure the ED must then have conversations on creating those spaces so that students can feel that when they've raised the issues, those issues are being attended to. Because there must be that space where we reach that stage, where young people will feel that, okay, we've been listened to. That's why in my university, we've got weekly meetings during registration with our SRC. And in those meetings, we bring every department of senior people. We start by saying SRC before that meeting must submit all the issues that they want us to deal with. Then we invite all those departments. And we monitor the implementation of those decisions so that young people can know that if they follow the right channels are useful. Instead of just bribing a traffic cop and it works and the car remains in shambles. So we must not embrace a culture of wrong ethics just because it works. Because there are many things that work, but they are wrong. It's just like it works for most guys. I'm shy, I comply. I'm shy, I vume. But is it right? No, it's wrong. It's evil, actually. So we must not use violence just for the sake of using violence. And we must also understand politically, there's epochs and epochs of politics. There are stages of revolution. What Fanon could have said when he was planning to mobilize for people to take guns, it was informed by a context. We are not in that context. We are in South Africa where we are free. We are not really free in other areas, but we are free. At least we are having freedom. So you can't use Fanon's analysis of a situation under oppression in the days of freedom. Because you might be coming with a solution which is wrong, which is not relevant in that particular timeline. That's why then we always talk, some of us who are Marxist-Leninists, that we must do negation of negation. We must do factual analysis, scientific analysis of a situation. The material conditions must dictate what tactic you are going to use. But then if the tactic has become blunt, that's why you'll find other comrades being in prison. So you must always read the ground and understand what time it is. The issue of elitism, which you have raised, of saying that to a certain extent, we end up being bookworms, being bookworm revolutionaries. As a result, we are no longer in touch with the real people on the ground. I think it's true. There is that thing of elitism. You know, the reason that made me to start a church is because I was attending an executive development program at VETS, and a lecturer asked the question, what is it that you would do if money was not an issue? I knew that the only thing I would do if money was not a problem is to start a church. Then after that class, I went to my computer, developed a constitution and a vision for a church, and I launched it in 2022 on the 30th of January with nobody, me and my wife and a few of my friends. Today, that church, the junior church, which is just young people between the age of 12 and 17, has 150 young people there. Our Sunday school has about 130 kids. The main church has about 300 people attending in the last 3 years, because I was provoked by a good thought. And I realized that I need to take action and do something about it. And another thing why I did that was not to be detached from the community. Because once you start living like we are living, in those estates, you know, security estates, and you can see that education is bringing opulence. Because as safan nagdala, phela sahlupheki njengakudala, you start being detached from your people. That's why then I started the church, so that I can see the poor people, because in church they come there, and then I interact with them on a day-to-day basis. But the question is that as a young person, what is your own project that helps you not to be detached from the people? Because we must also be concerned. I'm sure those of you who read the Bible, there is a scripture in the book of Ecclesiastes that talks about too much knowledge being a problem. You must not get knowledge in such a way that it uproots you from who you are, your people, your language, and your own family. Must always be in touch with that family. Christmas things must happen. That's why people who always stay on campus during recess don't want to go home are people who are detaching themselves because they think their friends are now irrelevant. They're no longer making sense, Chomi. So I agree with you fully. We need to deliberately fall in love with our people again, because a revolutionary, his first duty is to get educated. The next duty is to love his people. So we must always do that. The other issue that has been raised, party politics are not serving us. I don't agree. I think party politics without a program are not serving us well. When politicians do not have a program, this is what, I think it's Marx who say these words. He's talking about, for revolutionary action to happen, you must have revolutionary theory to guide you. We call that thing a program of action. So we must theorize what are the challenges of our people, what programs should we collectively pursue. Then politics works. But if it's a politics of friends and enemies, then it has no revolutionary theory that helps you to pursue that particular theory. That's when we're going to have friends like this in SRCs, friends like this, or just fools who are competing against each other. So, because, you know, I look at the higher education portfolio committee in Parliament. They're coming from different parties, but they've got one agenda to make sure that they improve. For the first time in many years, that committee is helping us to push certain things, because as much as others are EFF, ANC, or whatever is there, but they're having a revolutionary idea that they are pushing collectively. So, as and when we are coordinated from different parties, we need to have a program. If there's no program, then it's friends like this. So it's because there's no serious political education. One of the things that we must do is to introduce political schools again. And I'm happy the ED is providing platforms like this, because at least it's because the ED is deliberate in bringing back from the right people who are also activists in their own right. How can the university and government sustain free education? Maybe let's talk about those things. This thing is about choices. I'm sure those of you who are watching the Madlanga Commission have heard that in Tembisa Hospital, someone stole 2 billion. And we know we need about 6 billion to achieve free education in South Africa. We don't need a lot of money. But this money is being stolen by some people. Most of them are not politicians. Most of them, they work for the state. There are people from universities who work for the hospital, who work for government departments, not politicians. Because I've not heard a lot being said about politicians stealing this money. It's basically a clerk. They say in that hospital some clerks, they stole about 1.2 million it's about 120 million was given to these workers. They are not politicians, they are not activists, they're just ordinary workers who steal. So, what does that tell us? It tells us that we need to challenge, we need to be active, we need to raise a whistle as and when we see these things happening in our community. I believe that free education was not demanded rather early. Actually, we were too late. We should have demanded it from the word go in 1994. That one of the things that must happen is free education, because a country that has people who are educated, that country has people who understand complexities, who have solutions, who can be able, because you must also understand how few you are as young people in higher education. Higher education youth is only 22% of the country's population of youth. It's only 22%. It's not like we are so many. That 1 million number of young people in a country of 55 million people, you must calculate, you are just less than 22% of young people's population in the country. Why can't the entire country support that? Why? It's only that we've been advocating for free things, free this, free that, instead of free education. We should have focused our energies and our money to education, because let me tell you, an educated person is a person that has choices. You can either work here or work overseas. But a person who's not educated would always want to be fed by government. So if we want young people who are liberated, we must take this money, use it in education, take it away. I don't understand why should our country have taxi subsidies. You know, I hear them giving billions to taxi owners, subsidies for taxi owners. When education, it's billions which are taken. That money must actually be here in all universities, make universities in South Africa to be more than just 26. Because when you go to other countries like China, there's more than 1,500 universities in that country. But in our country, it's only 26, 27, and a few private institutions. What does that tell you? It tells you that we are not giving credence to where credence is due, which is education. So these things are about choices. But also, we must ask ourselves a question, where do we overspend in education? Let me tell you, we are not overspending on tuition. We are overspending on beds, which are overpriced. I don't understand why should a one room be 45,000 per annum. So who's sharing that money of that one room being 45,000 per annum? Clearly, there is wastage somewhere there. We are overspending on textbooks. Who's writing these books? Who's benefiting from these books? How are they benefiting the nation? Why should things like books be this expensive in our country? So we must regulate those particular things which are making the price and the cost of education to be too high. But we must travel a little and see what they are doing in other countries where there's free education. You'll be shocked that their economies are so small than ours. But also we must tax the rich in this country. We must not be afraid. Do you know that me as a worker who is at a particular threshold, I'm taxed 45% per month of my salary, but a businessman is taxed only 19%. Why? Why should I as a worker, working class, be taxed 45%, but a businessman be taxed only 19%? Who came with this balance? The most wealthy people in our country must be charged more so that they can fund education. That's where the funding of the education is. As a result, I demand that free education must come faster than what we are currently having. Well, there is that issue of, I've addressed this issue of anarchy. I've addressed this issue of the masses. When university proves that closing gate, I've addressed that issue that two wrongs don't make a right. Was the demand for education premature? No, it was not premature, it was too late. We should have demanded it a long time ago. And the issue of incentives for student leaders, I don't think there's a problem with incentives. Well, we were some of the SRCs which did not get incentives, you know. There were no jackets because we saw them as selling out. However, there's nothing wrong with being incentivized. What is wrong is when the one who is incentivized think the incentives are something that we call in politics table manners. To say you can't speak while you're eating. You must not see incentives like that. You must see incentives as a motivation to work harder and to serve more. Not see it as, hey, mawudla melu thule. It's not that. It's not table manners management, that thing of incentives. However, we must not be pushed by incentives. Actually, we must be pushed by the concept of tabumbek of litsima, being volunteers for our nation. But you must not volunteer all the time. That's why we're having internships and other things so that we can stop that thing of abuse of volunteers. You must volunteer for a while and then build yourself up. But there's nothing wrong with incentives. I think they are good in the university and we must continue doing them, especially for mentors, for residence councils, SRCs. And SRCs must not keep quiet. Because the only difference between speaking your mind and doing wrong things is when you don't have a proper approach, a manner of approach. Obviously, those of you who've got girlfriends will know. If you don't have a proper approach. So why do you think management will come when you don't have approach with management? So you must always have approach. You must season your speech with salt all the time. And then think about what you're about to say. Show that you are an intellectual. Don't be a bully. You don't want to be bullied. Don't bully the management. Raise issues. It's what I called earlier contradiction with civility. Remain civil at all material times. And then people will take you serious. They will even offer you a job because they see potential that this is a good leader. Thank you.
The Director of Student Governance and Leadership Development from Tshwane University of Technology. Please give him a very, very big round of applause, Dr. Xaba. No, we're good. This is Dr. Xaba, guys. You know some of us will be here being prim and proper, and he's like, we can go, So thank you so much, Dr. Xaba. We really don't have to go further than this. There's unity, there's power in unity, there's power in knowledge. It all depends on how we use it. And all we have to do, really, is to start using it. Just use it properly. Then before we move on to the other parts of the program, no, we're about to. Yes, we're about to. This little booklet that you found on your seats. This is a booklet that shows the dialogues that have been hosted from the Office of the ED from last year up until this year. But also, the most important part for tonight, this is important for your life, but the most important part for tonight, please look at the back part of it. There should be a little QR code that you can scan. Please scan that little QR code. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please scan that little QR code. We would like to know your opinions, your thoughts, your feelings on the topic that has been. You don't have it? Can I get this signal, a yes or a no? Do we have it? In front. For others, it's in the front. For others, it's at the back. We'd like to know, we'd like to get your views, your opinions on the program. Did we hit the sweet spots of the topic? Did you learn something? Did you not learn something? Would you like a second part of this, or can the ED swiftly move on to the next one? And I saw on the program Dr. Chalufi is coming next. I'm definitely coming. ED, I'm the program director of that one, I'm telling you. He is. So then again, if you do not have it, let us please share our little QR codes. It's not a secret, it's not a vote. You will have your own secret when you get to say your say. Also, please check, there's 2 roaming attendance registers. Just fill in your name, your student number on only one of them. We do need to know exactly how many people were here and sorry, and all of that. Oh, it's just a booklet. Do we have the, okay, then it will follow. The QR code will follow for the evaluation. So on that note, we're not closing as yet, but to help us step off the stage, myself and Dr. Xaba, please help us welcome back on stage Harmony Hives, and I believe after that we'll have a little symphony from Sandeswa. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doc. Maybe they didn't hear you. How many hives? They don't use them. Are you sure?
At least they were having a blank
Switch the other one off. Switch this one off.
You can have one mic, or do you want 2 mics?
Wemadoda sabelani, wemadoda sabelani, wemadoda ngandani. Yiyo lengom, yiyo lengom, yiyo lengoma. Wemadoda sabelani, wemadoda sabelani, wemadoda ngandani. Yiyo lengom, yiyo lengom, yiyo lengoma. Wemadoda sabelani, wemadoda sabelani, wemadoda ngandani. Yiyo lengom, yiyo lengom, yiyo lengom. Ngiyathandaza Nkosi, uphendula imithandazo yethu. Oh, ngenelela bayaphela sikelela nasi isizwe sakho. Ngiyathandaza Nkosi, oh, uphendula imithandazo yethu. Oh, ngenelela lekelela abafazi bayaphela. Wemadoda mamelani, wemadoda ngandani, wemadoda ngandani. Yiyo lengom, yiyo lengom, yiyo lengom. Wemadoda sabelani, wemadoda ngandani, wemadoda ngandani. Yiyo lengom, yiyo lengom, yiyo bayaphela bafazi.
Soze saphela. Thank you so much, Sandiswa, followed by Harmony Hives. That was very beautiful. Thank you so much. Then to close off the program, please help me welcome the main reason why we are all here. Please, Dr. Thembahlasho.
Yeah, I think I was coached properly because I was told I must press and hold a while, and then this thing will work. Good evening. It's always a problem if you speak between your item and food or refreshment. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I'm going to just do what I'm assigned to do. I'm assigned to really thank you for attending this session. I need to reflect why we are having this session. As students that are in higher education, you came here because you want to be better persons. And for you to be better persons, you need to interface with knowledge. This platform is giving you an opportunity to really freely interface with knowledge, to really freely express yourselves. Because it is true, expressing yourselves intellectually where you learn, where you enhance your skills. I think I have to say this. Dr. Xaba, I'm very inspired by what I witnessed here today. From the first question, there was intellectuality in it. From the first question, the person demonstrated that he read before he came here. Dr. Xaba said something very interesting. He says, you need to really engage management from a position of power. Position of power is when you know your story, is when your articulation is compelling. So, closing the gates, historically, people did that. I think Dr. Xaba confirmed that. But what becomes very impactful is to advance a compelling narrative, is to really push logical narrative. I'm impressed by all of you for gracing this conversation series, and the whole purpose of us having to really come together is for us to learn from each other. We learn from you by asking very intellectual questions. We also learn from you by asking questions that are really critical, sometimes very difficult to answer. You also learn here because we brought Dr. Xaba, whom I have known for many years. He is a very, very intellectual person I have known in student affairs, highly knowledgeable in student affairs. He is a leader that I aspire. He spoke about ethics, highly ethical leader, and you are privileged to have actually interfaced with him. And I think you should applaud yourselves in the manner in which you engage, Dr. Xaba. I want to see you and hear you applauding for yourselves. Dr. Xaba, thank you very much, sir. It's always a privilege to have this engagement with you. It's always a privilege to share with you the knowledge, your deeper sense of student affairs and higher education. The manner in which you took us back historically, starting from, the 70s, 80s, 90s. it's really reflective of a person who has a deeper understanding of student politics, who have a deeper understanding of the country's history and politics. And we should really thank ourselves for being here so that we are really socialized into that kind of knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is, if you read as a student, nothing will stop you. I don't have shares in Cell C. If you drive from Kronstadt towards Bloemfontein, there's a big Cell C board. It says exactly what I say. Nothing should stop you. You should be unstoppable in achieving what you set to achieve. What you set to achieve is to be knowledgeable, is to leave this institution with a qualification, is to go out there and be impactful in the society. I always say, some of us are first generation. Cousins, villages are looking up to us because I will be that first graduate in the village, in the entire family. Keep it up. You are here in numbers because you are interested in knowledge. With those few words, let me thank the colleagues from student governance and my office who made this session possible. Let me also thank the colleagues in the kitchen who's going to give us some refreshments. Colleagues, you are... Dr. Xaba, I just hope I'm correct, because if I'm not correct, they know I will have to make it happen. So with those few words, thank you very much. Colleagues, enjoy the rest of the evening. Okay, and yourself? And who? Don't know, I'll ask Paula. Ask Paula. Must I say something? Dr. Xaba, thank you very much for gracing this conversation series. It's appreciated. Your inspiring message to our students is fulfilling. And from today onward, I know my students will never be the same again. I always say, in my culture as a Xhosa, there is this saying, igwinya lingena oilini limhlophe liphuma li-brown. Today you are not white anymore. You are phuma apha ninjani ni brown.
I like this closer.
Thank you all. Yes, we are finally at the end of the program. I'd like to also give a warm welcome to the technical team from Roistu, our sign language interpreters. For some of us, this is a first and refreshing. Thank you so much. We should say, in terms of diversity on this campus, we do lack that presence of differently abled student and staff members. So I hope your presentation here is more than just translating. You are opening up our doors to students that more can come. We do cater for all. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming here. Thank my colleagues. I like it when they applaud, they do this. I know you like to clock it, but I like to do this. Thank you so much. Then as we're going to start, as Dr. Hlashiso said, we are settling politics of the stomach, and I hope and trust. For those off campus, we're still within your time for transportation. So I'd like to start from the front rows. So please live like a wedding. You know there's a story mate and a story groom. 1, 2. Let us do that while Roy still gives us some music. Thank you all and have a lovely evening.